Imagine cooking Thanksgiving dinner. Now imagine cooking it 3 times a day. For 5,000 people. While floating in the middle of the ocean. On a ship that's essentially a small city doing 30 knots. Oh, and if you mess up, there's no DoorDash coming to save you. Welcome to the galley of the USS Gerald R. Ford, where the stakes are high, the ovens never stop, and running out of eggs could genuinely threaten national security. This isn't your average kitchen nightmare. This is the largest aircraft carrier ever built, churning out 14,000 meals every single day. That's more food than most restaurants serve in a month. And they're doing it in a space that would make Gordon Ramsay weep. So how does this floating food factory actually work? Stick around, because the logistics are absolutely wild. Let's start with the obvious question. Why 14,000 meals for 5,000 sailors? Simple math says that's almost 3 meals per person. And you'd be right. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But here's the catch. Not everyone eats at the same time. The carrier operates 24/7s. Always. Someone's always flying planes, maintaining equipment, standing watch or trying to catch some sleep before their next shift. The ship never stops, which means the kitchen never stops either. The USS Gerald R. Ford is the newest and most advanced carrier in the U.S. Navy. At 1,106 feet long, it's longer than the Eiffel Tower is tall. It displaces 100,000 tons. It can carry 75 aircraft. And somewhere in the belly of this floating fortress is a kitchen operation that would make any food service manager have a panic attack. The ship has multiple galleys. Not one giant kitchen, but several specialized food prep areas spread throughout the vessel. The main galley is enormous. But even that's not enough. There are smaller galleys for officers, for the admiral's staff, and even for the air crews who need food at weird hours because jet maintenance doesn't follow a normal schedule. It's less one restaurant and more like an entire food court that happens to be surrounded by fighter jets and nuclear reactors. Let's talk numbers, because the scale is genuinely absurd. The Ford will go through 1.3 million pounds of food. That's 650 tons. If you tried to fit all that food in shipping containers, you'd need about 30 of them, just for one deployment. The ship stocks 250,000 pounds of flour. That's enough to bake around 600,000 loaves of bread. They go through 80,000 pounds of chicken, 50,000 pounds of ground beef, and an absolutely ridiculous 15,000 pounds of coffee, because nothing on a warship happens without caffeine. But here's where it gets interesting. You can't just stop at the grocery store when you're in the middle of the Pacific. Every single ingredient has to be carefully planned, ordered, loaded, and stored before the ship even leaves port. Run out of something essential, and you've got a problem. A really big problem. Imagine telling 5,000 sailors there's no more coffee. That's not a morale issue. That's a mutiny waiting to happen. The loading process alone is a military operation within a military operation. Before deployment, the ship pulls into port, and the real chaos begins. Trucks arrive carrying pallets of food. Forklifts move constantly. Sailors form human chains passing boxes from the dock to the ship. It's called an onload, and it takes days. Everything from cases of frozen chicken to industrial-sized bags of rice to thousands of gallons of milk. All of it has to be inventoried, labeled, and stored in the right place. Because when you're at sea and you need something, you need to know exactly where it is. Storage is its own nightmare. The Ford has massive freezers and refrigerators below deck. Some of them are the size of small apartments. Walking into one is like entering a frozen warehouse. Shelves packed floor to ceiling with food, beef in one section, chicken in another, vegetables somewhere else. The temperature is kept brutally cold, around -10 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want to spend too long in there without proper gear. Frostbite is a real concern. But even with all that freezer space, fresh food is a luxury. For the first week or two of deployment, sailors eat relatively well. Fresh fruits, vegetables, milk, eggs, real eggs. But as time goes on, fresh supplies run out. Apples disappear. Eventually, everything comes from a can, a box, or the freezer. That's just life at sea. By week 3, if you see a fresh salad, you're either hallucinating or the ship just pulled into port. Now let's talk about the people who make this culinary circus happen. They're called culinary specialists, or CS for short. used to be called cooks, but the Navy decided that didn't sound professional enough. Fair. These sailors are responsible for every meal, every day, no matter what. And they work in conditions that would make most chefs quit on the spot. The main galley operates on a rotating schedule. Some CS sailors work the breakfast shift starting at 4 a.m. Others handle lunch. Dinner crew comes in after that. And then there's the midnight shift for the night owls, who need food at 2 a.m. because their job doesn't care about normal human sleep schedules. It's a never-ending cycle. As soon as one meal service ends, prep for the next one begins. Cooking for 5,000 people isn't like cooking for your family scaled up. It's a completely different beast. Industrial equipment everywhere. Ovens the size of cars. Mixers that could probably double as washing machines. Grills big enough to cook 200 steaks at once. And everything is bolted down, because when the ship hits rough seas, you really don't want a 500-pound oven sliding across the room. The menus are planned weeks in advance by nutritionists and food service officers. There's a rotation to keep things from getting too repetitive. Taco Tuesday is a real thing. So is steak night. And breakfast for dinner happens more often than you'd think. Probably because pancakes are cheap and people love them. But variety only goes so far when you're eating in the same place for 3 months straight. After a while, even the best galley food starts to taste like the same thing. One of the wildest parts of this whole operation is the sheer speed required. When it's time for a meal, thousands of sailors flood the mess decks. Lines form instantly, and they need to be fed fast. Most sailors only get 30 minutes to an hour for meals, and that includes waiting in line, eating, and getting back to work. The serving line has to move like a machine. Sailors grab trays, shuffle past the hot food stations, load up, and keep moving. It's efficient. It's fast. It's the only way to feed that many people without the line wrapping around the entire ship. But speed doesn't mean the food is terrible. That's the thing people get wrong about military food. It's not gourmet, but it's also not the slop people imagine. The Navy actually puts effort into keeping morale up through food. Because when you're stuck on a ship for months, away from family, doing a dangerous job, a good meal matters. It's one of the few comforts available. So the CS sailors try. They really do. When taco night hits just right, or the fried chicken is actually crispy, it makes a difference. Let's talk about the chaos of meal service. Picture this. It's noon. The mess decks are packed, hundreds of sailors in line. The galley is in full swing. Grills sizzling, fryers bubbling, steam rising from massive pots of rice. And then the ship hits a wave. Not a huge one, just enough to make everything shift. Suddenly you're trying to flip burgers while the floor is moving under your feet. Trays slide, people stumble. And the CS sailors just keep going because stopping isn't an option. Rough seas are brutal for the galley crew. Imagine cooking while standing on a floor that's constantly tilting, trying to pour liquids when the container won't stay level, or carrying a tray of hot food across a room that's swaying like a theme park ride. It's a skill that takes time to learn. New sailors struggle with it. They spill things. They drop stuff. They get seasick while trying to prep vegetables. But eventually they adapt. They learn to move with the ship, to anticipate the rolls and pitches. It becomes second nature. Waste management is another challenge. People don't think about when you're serving 14,000 meals a day, you're generating a staggering amount of trash. Food scraps, packaging, containers, everything. On land, you throw it in a dumpster and someone hauls it away. At sea, you can't do that. The ship has to manage its own waste. Food waste gets ground up in industrial garbage disposals and discharged into the ocean, but only when they're far enough from shore and following strict environmental regulations. Everything else gets sorted, compacted, and stored until the ship can offload it in port. Then there's the equipment maintenance. These industrial ovens, grills, fryers, and dishwashers take an absolute beating. They run constantly for months. Things break. A lot. And when a critical piece of equipment goes down, the galley crew has to improvise. Oven broken? Use the backup. Backup also broken. Time to get creative. There are stories of galley crews rigging temporary solutions with spare parts and duct tape just to get through the next meal service. Because the meals can't stop. Ever. Dishwashing deserves its own horror story. The sheer volume of dishes, trays, utensils, and pots is mind-boggling. Industrial dishwashers run non-stop. Sailors assigned to dish duty, often the newest members of the crew, stand in front of these machines for hours, scraping plates, loading trays, unloading clean dishes. It's hot, it's wet, it's loud, and it smells exactly like you'd imagine a room full of dirty dishes smells. It's considered one of the worst jobs on the ship, and someone has to do it after every single meal. But let's circle back to the food itself. What are these sailors actually eating? Breakfast is usually the easiest meal. Scrambled eggs, although after the fresh eggs run out, it's powdered eggs. Bacon, sausage, pancakes, oatmeal, cereal, toast, pretty standard stuff. Coffee flows constantly. Without it, the ship would probably stop functioning. Lunch and dinner get more varied. Burgers, hot dogs, fried chicken, pasta, tacos, stir-fry, meatloaf, pot roast. There's usually a main entree, a couple of sides, a salad bar when fresh vegetables are still available, and dessert. The desserts are actually pretty solid. Cake, pie, sugar is a morale booster, and the Navy knows it. Special occasions get special meals. Thanksgiving and Christmas, even at sea, mean traditional holiday food. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie. The galley crew goes all out. It's a reminder of home. A small piece of normalcy in a very abnormal environment. And the sailors appreciate it. For a few hours, they're not eating military food. They're eating a holiday meal, just like they would with family. There's also the midnight rations, or midrats. For sailors working the night shift, midrats are a lifeline. Usually leftovers from dinner, or sometimes breakfast food. Available from around 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. It's not fancy. Cold pizza, sandwiches, soup, cereal. But when you've been working all night and you're starving, it's perfect. Midrats have a certain cult following on the ship. Some sailors swear it's the best meal of the day, probably because there's no line and you can take your time. Now the really interesting part. The Ford isn't just feeding sailors. It's feeding the entire air wing. Pilots, air crews, maintenance personnel. And these people have odd schedules. Flight operations happen at all hours. A pilot might finish a mission at 3 a.m. and need food immediately. The galley has to be ready for that. There are even grab-and-go options for people who can't sit down for a full meal. Pre-made sandwiches, fruit, snacks, anything to keep people fueled and ready. And then there's the officers. They have their own dining area, called the wardroom. The food is similar to what the enlisted sailors eat, but the atmosphere is different. Quieter, more formal. Officers eat together, discuss operations, make decisions. It's part dining room, part meeting space. The wardroom is also where visiting dignitaries eat when they're on board. Admirals, politicians, foreign officials. The galley crew has to be ready to prepare more upscale meals when VIPs show up. Because serving a senator leftovers from the mess decks isn't exactly great diplomacy. The stress on the galley crew during deployment is intense. They're working long hours in difficult conditions, often dealing with equipment failures, supply shortages, and the constant pressure of feeding thousands of people who are tired, stressed, and hungry. And if the food is bad, everyone knows who to blame. Morale on a ship is fragile. Bad food can tank it fast. So the CS sailors carry that weight. They know their job matters beyond just nutrition. It's about keeping spirits up. There's also a competitive element. Different carriers have different reputations for their food. Some ships are known for having great galleys. Others, not so much. The Ford, being the newest carrier, has state-of-the-art facilities, modern equipment, better storage, more space. That gives them an advantage. But it still comes down to the people. A fancy kitchen doesn't mean much if the crew doesn't care. And from what sailors report, the Ford's galley crew takes pride in their work. Resupply missions are critical. Even with all the food loaded before deployment, ships run out of certain items. That's where replenishment at sea comes in. Another ship pulls alongside the carrier while both are moving. A steel cable connects them. Pallets of food, fuel, ammunition, and supplies get transferred across. Or UN rep. It's dangerous. Two massive ships moving in parallel. sometimes just 100 feet apart, transferring cargo. If something goes wrong, people can get hurt, but it's necessary. The ship needs food. The galley needs supplies, so they make it happen. The galley crew has to quickly process and store the new food. Fresh vegetables appear again. Morale spikes. Fresh milk returns, eggs that aren't powdered. It's like Christmas morning. Sailors genuinely get excited about fresh produce. That's what months at sea does to you. An apple becomes a luxury item. One thing people don't realize is how much influence the galley has on the entire ship's culture. Food is a common ground. Doesn't matter your rank, your job, your background. Everyone eats. Everyone has opinions about the food. It's one of the few shared experiences on a ship where jobs are so specialized that some sailors barely interact with people outside their department. But in the mess decks, everyone's equal. An admiral and a new recruit might end up sitting at the same table, eating the same meal. That's powerful. And when things go wrong, the galley crew deals with the fallout. Food poisoning outbreak? That's a crisis. The medical staff gets overwhelmed. The galley gets investigated. New protocols get implemented. Because you can't have hundreds of sailors getting sick at once. The ship still has a mission. If the crew is incapacitated, the mission fails. So food safety is taken incredibly seriously. Temperatures monitored constantly. Proper storage procedures. Regular inspections. The stakes are higher than any civilian restaurant. But despite all the challenges, the logistics, the equipment failures, the long hours and the stress, the galley crew keeps going. Every day. Every meal. Because they understand something fundamental. You can have the most advanced aircraft carrier in the world, loaded with cutting-edge jets and weapon systems. But none of that matters if the crew isn't fed. A hungry sailor can't do their job. Simple as that. So the next time you see footage of an aircraft carrier launching jets or conducting operations, remember there's a whole other operation happening below deck. A culinary battle being fought by sailors who will never get the spotlight. They're not flying the planes or firing the weapons. They're making sure everyone else can. 14,000 meals a day. Every single day, no breaks. No days off. Just pure, relentless food service. In one of the most challenging environments imaginable. And somehow they make it work. That's the real story of the USS Gerald R. Ford's galley. Not just cooking. Survival. Logistics. Strategy. All wrapped up in the simple act of feeding people. And honestly, it's pretty impressive when you think about it. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this, check out our other videos on military logistics.